Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the press. I'd like to welcome you to another edition of our weekly press briefing here in the foyer of the Executive Mansion in Monrovia. Today is Friday, October 17, 2025. However you are listening, wherever you are listening, on whatever platform, whether it's social media, regular media, on radio, on television, in the diaspora, across the world, in the counties, we'd like to welcome you to this edition of our weekly press briefing. And as always, it has been a very busy week for His Excellency working in the interest of the Liberian people. But before I go to give you an update from His Excellency, I'd like to welcome to the Executive Mansion Press Corps one of our new recruits from Punch FM, Ms. Louise Pebe. I want to welcome you to this press briefing and to the Executive Mansion Press Corps family and community. You're welcome to join the colleagues. They're very welcoming at times, but it can be really interesting at times. So what we hear is one family, whatever you need, whatever support they can give. So the president, as I said, has had a really busy week. As you know, he just came in over the weekend from Togo, Lomé, on an invitation of his friend and brother, the president of Togo, His Excellency Fuaye Asingbe. There, he had gone to address the second edition of the Lomé Peace Forum that was held over the weekend. The president has since been back and very actively been engaging. His Excellency also attended the opening of the Honorable Supreme Court. As you know, part of what His Excellency does is around access to justice, supporting the justice in the judiciary to ensure that access to justice, our people, community, everyone is given equal opportunity. And he visited the court opening in its October term, where the new Chief Justice was also seated, and he listened to the charge of His Honor Justice Yemi Kwekwe, where he spoke of some of the reforms that he's instituting at the judiciary. And our president, His Excellency President Boakai, also did talk about his role and his interest in supporting the new leadership and in helping to contribute to the judiciary. But more so, not just for the judiciary of itself, but for the Liberian people, where they can have access to justice, where they trust the justice and judiciary system, where they can build that interest and ensure that our country is on the right path. And as you know, His Excellency did also talk about the need for working together collaboratively in the interest of our Constitution, that despite the fact of the separation of power between the three branches, but there's also that coordinate component that the Constitution clearly outlines. And the President also re-emphasized the need for the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive to work together in the interest of the Liberian people, each branch doing their share of contribution to the development of our country. Our President also has appointed the Deputy Commissioner for the Liberia Immigration Services, Mr. Nesco Alio Wallo. Mr. Wallo was appointed to serve the position. In continuation of the President's activities, the President also did relieve two officials from the National Public Health Institute, that's MPhil, Dr. Chris Duganya, as well as Dr. Adam Scale Lincoln for administrative reasons. And he also appointed Attorney Maxwell Grigsby, Mr. Rani Sharif, Mr. Stephen DePay, all of the Ministry of Justice for the witness protection. One of the other issues that I've seen that people ask whether the President has the authority to appoint directors. But I'd like to clarify that these positions, they're not your regular director that is within the institution. This Witness Protection Unit was created by an act of legislature, and the act specifically gives the authorization to the president to appoint these individuals. Moreover, there is a team that led the recruitment process. So through the Ministry of Justice, the team led the recruitment process of these individuals, where they all applied and went through the vetting, and the recommendations, their score, were all listed as to what they got and who would be recommended. So by the act, they were submitted to the president for onward addition to the president for the president. The Liberian National Railroad Authority was established. However, there is also, the president has an executive order to refocus the authority, and the refocusing issued the executive order 153, which principally renewing the old executive order, which was 136. And this one is establishing and refocusing the LNRA. Particularly, the president puts premium on this executive order, or this component of the infrastructure projects on rails. As we know, component of our transportation industry has to do with rails, and so this executive order is pretty much in the interest of that. And I'll just give you a bit of the highlight of why this executive order was and is important. Basically, it's about driving Liberia's long-term economic and transformation and regional integration, as well as global competitiveness. It also recognizes the need to institutionalize if Liberia is a heavily industrial, or may I say, extractive industry sector in terms of mining, as well as the forestry. And these are all contributors, especially when we have concession agreements with different individuals or companies, to be able to provide them with these reasonable and viable to access very heavy logs or mining implements. More specifically, there is supposed to be the technical advisory team that will be responsible to drafting an enabling act to establish the Liberia National Railroad Authority as a statutory institution, developing a transparent and predictable regulatory framework consistent with international best practices, designing a multi-user access model for and to ensure fairness and competitiveness across the sector. So this goes to say that there is also going to be the Rail Authority Liaison Officer, who will work with all stakeholders, inclusive of the presidency, the legislature, and all parties for the next stage, that is the establishment of the authority by an act of legislature, which will go through the natural legislative processes and procedure. We've published the full, component, and we wish those of you who have interest in the conversation around the Rail Authority to, follow up with that. Also, the president, for the first time in many years, earlier today, retired and honored men and a woman of our armed forces of Liberia. This is the first time in post-war Liberia that our men who have served, who have given their time, talent, and energy to serving the country, our president did honor them and appreciated on behalf of our country their work, their contributions, and all of the things they've done for the country. And they were very ecstatic and praised our president for this. And for the president, when he made a commitment to strengthening the security sector when he took over the country, even during his inaugural message and his first annual message, We all remember also the challenges when he took over of the armed forces and the regular cries of the widow or even the wives of the armed forces, talking about the facility, the challenges that they have. And consistently, our president has worked with the team at the Ministry of National Defense as well as the authority of the National Army to ensure that these challenges are worked on. For example, the president was happy to be able to dedicate the barracks that were constructed in Grand Jide as well as Nimba County in Sanikole earlier. And these are things that the president is intending to do that we can strengthen the army. And even with the bringing of electricity at the EBK barracks, shuffling, as well as the fixing of the school, the elementary school, and making it tuition free, because those were some of the calls from the wives of the men who were serving our army. So this act of honoring and retiring these strong men and women who serve the country is part of President Boakai's security sector reforms and bringing that energy and bringing the respectability of the National Army. And just to recall some of those individuals, you have Captain James S. Bakoya, who was the 23rd Infantry Battalion. He served the Army from 2008 July to October 2025. Also, Merchant I. Gurley, Band Unit, serving 2006 to October 2025. And Master Sergeant Richard S. Parr from 2008 to 2025. Master Sergeant Jala J. Sandi from 2008 to September 2025. As well as First Sergeant Henry K. Barr, 2008 to 2025, and First Sergeant Robert K. Toh, 2008 to 2025. These men and women and our president, the chief executive of the country and the commander-in-chief of the Armed Forces of Liberia, was very pleased to honorably retire these Liberians who have served the country. Furthermore, the president had also been briefed of the demise, and he would like us to again express our deepest sympathy to President, his dear friend and brother, President William Ruto, and the people of Kenya for the loss of Honorable Raila Odinga. There in Kenya, he expressed his deepest sympathy and sends his condolences to the people of Kenya. President Ruto has been a friend, a very good friend to His Excellency. They've been working assiduously together for the continent and in support of the both countries. So President Boakai, again, on behalf of the people of Liberia, the government and people of Liberia, extends his deepest sympathies to the family of and the people of Kenya of Honorable Raila Odinga for his demise. Again, as we conclude, I'd like to thank all of those who have applied for the Executive Mansion Internship Program. And as you know, we did begin the Executive Mansion Internship Program recruitment process with a call for application. And all those who have applied, almost close to 200 persons, we'd like to thank you for your time you put in to submit applications. And as we announced before, the applications were closed since September 30th. The process now is reviewing all of the application. But I'd like to announce that on Monday, October 20th, there will be the official launch of the internship program, where we'll bring stakeholders and the applicants together. And at the end of the period, during the course of the following week, those of you who applied, those who will be shortlisted will be announced, and they will go through another rounds of process. So it's not a one-day thing, it's a process. So we beg your indulgence, those who have been following up, calling, please. Please do not call to follow up with the office. This is not a process where you will say, oh, I know this person. Can you find out from the PBS office where we are? I mean, it's my friend, apply. It's going to be a very open, in a way, very integrated, transparent process. Those who will be selected, and nobody with their friends or families or connections will be able to influence any decision. I just like to put this out and to assure all the applicants that once you meet the qualifications, once you fit, what the team is looking for, of course, you'll be given the opportunity to serve your country as an intern here at the Executive Mansion. And we look forward to welcoming, all of those of you who will, at the end of the day, be selected to be a part of this. So thank you all for this. I look forward to picking your questions and being able to answer those as you want them. Thank you and good afternoon. So as usual, as you know, you state your name, the institution you represent, and you provide a question. Thanks. Yes, ma'am.
So my name is Princess Kosiba, and I write for the closing argument that of KMTV. So today we witnessed the retirement ceremony of 6 long-serving officials of the Armed Forces of Liberia. You care to tell us as to if this process will be annually done, and if it is done annually, what exactly the vetting process is like?
Well, I think from the team at the Armed Forces, so the plan is to regularly, I wouldn't say annually, so regularly review where, the process, because there's a whole policy they have. They have the, retirement policy that the previous team had started to work on. They started it, and this new team is implementing, the retirement policy. And as you can recall, there was also a pension funds. There were some funds that were taken from the Army. So there's a whole history of why and, where this comes in. So there's a vetting process. Those who have reached the retirement age, there are plans to do that, but they've made us to understand that this will be a regular thing, because this is their way of bringing dignity to the armed forces and really building a force for good. As you know, that's the motto of the Armed Forces of Liberia, a force for good. So they really want to do this to ensure that the Armed Forces of Liberia represents what that motto stands for. Yes. Yes, please.
So I'm J.H. Webster Clay, and I report for Front Page Africa. Manon Press Secretary. There's news filtering in the public that because of the construction of the 2 overpasses bridge, the president is deciding on lifting the ban on motorcyclists. To avoid serious traffic congestion. And can you speak to that?
Sure. So as adhered, the president has not made the decision as to whether or not there will be a lifting on the ban for motorcyclists. And as always, before any public measures are taken, they're advised from the team that's in charge of that, whether it's the Ministry of Justice, Liberia National Police, and the people in charge of traffic and management, and even the Public Works, Ministry of Public Works. They have had plans, so they've discussed as to rerouting traffic and which way, and then opening other passes that cars and other and individuals can utilize during the construction of it. Of course, when it comes to infrastructure development, it comes with challenges. It comes with pain, as we would say, but those will be temporary. As you know, the interest is to ensure that the president has not asked to lifting of the biggest.
Yeah, sorry. So recently, President Boaga visited Lomé, Togo, to participate in the Lomé Peace and Security Forum. where he spoke, knowing that back home he initiated the Peace and Reconciliation program, the Peace and Reconciliation Conference, and then he had the historic reburial for past leaders. Are we to expect reconciliation talk from the current president and of the past president?
Yes. Madam, my name is Anthony Williams. I'm from the Liberia Broadcasting System. During the course of the week, President Boakai was at the Temple of Justice, where he received from the Chief Justice blueprints and designs of a proposed new Supreme Court. I'm being informed that this structure is expected to be erected in the confines of the same very Temple of Justice compound. My question is, now that Mr. President has received that, what has been his reaction since? Has he got intentions to start engagements about the project?
You know, the president shared the views of our institutions representing the new reality. In fact, he mentioned countless times about Liberia now is different from Liberia 50, 60, 70 years ago. Now, infrastructure, in fact, talking about that, for the first time there's going to be the National Infrastructure Conference to look at post-conflict Liberia infrastructure plan with everything that's happening. And it's just coincidental that the Chief Justice also have been able to provide the blueprint, or what we will, a drawing for the proposed Supreme Court of Liberia, the new infrastructure. I think it's a great idea, and the President welcomed the idea. But you know, it's also resource related, to find the resources for it. But the President is committed to constructing and renovating and building places to make Liberia a better place than what he sees. So as of now, he had not talked strategically or specifically about finding the resources or discussing with the team at the Ministry of Justice, at the Supreme Court of Judiciary. But it's something that they're looking into. Because this will have a bigger conversation as to budgetary allocation, finding the resources for it, and connecting with the judiciary on that, and also showing that partners who support access to justice will be able to come. So it's a bigger conversation will happen. But the goal, the plan is to at least have something done about it. So he's received it, his team is looking at it, and they will advise appropriately. As to the Togolumi, whether there's going to be an apology or what's going to be the reconciliation talks between former President Biya and President Boakai. To specifically say there is a reconciliatory issue there, I think sometimes it makes it really challenging. But I do know President Boakai had made efforts to connect and contact former President Biya, but the effort has not yielded any fruition. As the most recent effort was during the Unification Day, where the President had placed a call to former President Biya, but then the call wasn't accepted, and then there was a text message, and that's where that conversation is at the moment. But the President is always open to engaging former leaders and connecting. As to the President, one of the things that President Boakai is really doing, and this is something that we really need to have that conversation broader on the aspect of our reconciliation efforts. Reconciling the country since the Truth and Reconciliation process, there were major recommendations, and President Boakai is massively implementing some of those recommendations. Major one was to express public apology for the conflict and atrocities committed in our country, the reburial efforts, and many other things. He's even committed to, doing a full memorial memorialization and having a place where we can tell our stories and talk about some of the issues of the past. But I do know at the appropriate time, the two leaders will engage and interact for the sake of our country, because at this point, Liberians have asked this question many times. But the problem is not with President Walker. President Walker is an elderly statesman, the president of the country, he welcomes everyone. Some of his sterner critics have even engaged with him. So he's willing and open to engaging with former leaders, and he's met former President Shirley, political leaders, interacted. So it's not going to be a strange thing for him. He's hoping to happen that, and he's made an effort. So it's my hope that there will be a reciprocation with former President Leah and President Baba is also. They are neighbors too, so that neighbor issues they will fix it. So thank you all, but I'd just like to... Yes.
One last one. Thank you. This one, one last one please. So over the week or so, former President Shirley did mention and expressed deep concern over what she describes as huge corruption. In her terms, she says, it's a problem that remains one of the most serious challenges confronting national development. Former President Shirley, of course, is a key stakeholder in Liberia's history. But my question here is, has this claimed the attention of Mr. President? Because come to think of it, we are also aware that President Walker himself have made several strides over his tenure as it relates to issues of corruption, and suspensions have been here and there over accused corrupt officials. But as former President Shirley, most recent concern reached President Walker's desk?
Well, President Walker always listens to, we gave him briefing as to what's happening, what's the topical issues, and even with the statement. And as you know, President Walker also have expressed issues as it relates to corruption and what he intends to do. And he's working very hard and hitting the nails and taking actions of his officials who are accused of being corrupt or some practices. You've seen him taking action, dismissals, you've seen suspension, you've seen investigation. Currently, LSCC will tell you they have stockpile of cases that they're currently investigating. So this tells you that yes, corruption is a problem. Even alluding to Madam Shirley's statement, however, President Walker is working towards that. He's not just hearing it, or he knows, President Walker knows of the issues of corruption. That's why he has not taken sides. He will take actions. He's suspended people. And the way our country system is, the president by himself cannot just prosecute. He's not a prosecutor. He's not an investigator. He's the commander-in-chief. He's the appointing authority. So he will take action where it's in his purview. He asks his team the preliminary investigations, and you've seen where they've suspended people, they forwarded to LSCC. So the onus now is with those other portion and part of our governing system that needs to expedite these allegations, expedite these suspensions, say person X, you were accused of so and so, preliminary investigation shows that, and this is what was forwarded. Now we're investigating you, and we want to, so the best we can do to expedite those investigations. But the fact remains, President Walker is really working hard to root out corruption. He's said this a lot of times, and he's insistent on it, and he's working hard towards that. Before I go, I'd just like to make this clarification, because we've seen this a lot recently in the different conversations and on the social media and other platforms on this quote-unquote Ibomaf and Elton issue that they quote-unquote the government is resurrecting or is coming back, and there are a lot of different conversations that people have had or accusations of President Walker. And the information here is that President Walker, the conversation has not reached President Walker as to the uplifting of the issues, but what the information that's available is that the lawyers of Igbo Math and Elton, I'm sure you know, during the past administration, they got into a contract or the conversation around a contract with the government at the time under the past administration. And that deal did not go through because of course, the Liberians did not agree on that. But from our information is that the lawyers have written the Ministry of Justice to state that they have a contract with the Liberian government and they want to, come back for the contract for this conversation to, continue. But they have not reached the presidency as of yet. And as normal, if somebody had an issue with your government before, government is continuity, so they will want to, follow up. So government, you started this contract, we had these discussions, we went this far, things fell through the crack, but we want to know, we want to come back and all of that. But that conversation is a normal conversation that will happen, with anyone who wants to do that. So when you hear all these conversation is coming back and this is going ahead, so until it gets to the presidency, where the president had an opportunity to review what's going on, what are the issues, and he will be able to take a particular stand. But as of yet, the presidency is not in possession of any conversation in relations to Ebomath and Elton. So I hope the public will hear this, because in our country we know the issues of sensationalization. People will want to say, oh, this thing is happening, Waka is doing this, being a president. It's not an easy thing, Everything happens is the president. But as of yet, that's the latest information. It has not come to the presidency. It's in its preliminary stages where the lawyers believe that they have agreement when they're reaching the Ministry of Justice. So it's still at that stage. So when it reaches the president, he has an opinion or anything on it, definitely inform all of you. So thank you all so very much, and I look forward to seeing you all when we see you. And thank you all, and have a wonderful, wonderful Friday and weekend. Bye-bye.